Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Dana. Today I'm going to be sharing how I made this card, a version of this card anyway. This one I had already pre-made in practice. Little side note, don't mind the hand, my tendonitis is acting up, so I've got it wrapped up here. I'm hoping I won't get any ink or paint on it, but you know, we'll see. But some of the supplies that we're going to be using are this little mini texture fade. This is the mini Botanical precision layering set A2 from Spellbinders, several different die sets from Tim Holtz, photo booth, and then several different stamp sets also from Tim Holtz and Stampers Anonymous. If you want to play along, go run and grab your supplies. If you're interested in any of these supplies or wondering exactly what I'm using here, there is a full supply list in the description box below. I do have affiliate links when available, but shop your stash. If you have something similar to any of this, feel free and use that as well. Now let's get on to the making. This card is going to be a 5x7 card, so I'm just putting a piece of 5x7 cardstock. This is just some cream cardstock into my MISTI here. And I'm going to be using the Hodgepodge stamp to stamp the background. And then because this is a rubber mounted stamp, I just removed a little mouse pad thingy from my MISTI, and these magnets are in the way, so we're just going to get rid of those. Ooh, I almost pinched my finger. Don't do that. Don't put your magnets together. You'll pinch your fingers off. Okay. And then to ink that up, I'm just going to use the Distress Oxide ink in old paper. The inking doesn't have to be perfect on this. This is just to add a bit of visual interest to the background. I'm going to stamp that down. I do have a little stamper majigger thingy, but at the moment I'm not sure where it is. So I'm just going to use my hand. Okay, there we go. I'm happy with that. Get my sticky mat here. Oop. Just remove the paper. Okay, and I'm just going to set that aside to dry and clean up my stamp, and we'll move on to the next. For the next layer of the card, I just cut down a piece of that same cream cardstock using the Precision Layering A2 set. And I used the fourth one in on the set. I'm just going to place that in my MISTI and grab my magnets again, since this is a smaller sheet of paper. And the stamp set that I'll be using is this one. This is the French Garden from Tim Holtz and Stampers Anonymous. I'm just going to lay out the stamps here the way I want them. The ink that I'll be using for this layer is the Saltwater Taffy Distress Oxide. I'm just going to ink up all three of my stamps at once. Well, that one's still a little dirty. There we go. Okay, and then I want to do the stamp and smudge technique. So I just grabbed a paper towel and I'm just going to smudge the ink a little bit. This just makes the image kind of blurry, so it kind of just mutes it a little bit and sends it to the background. Okay, there we go. Okay, and then I'll lay out the next layer of stamps. There we go. Pick those up with the Misty. And the ink that I'll use for this one is the Spice Marmalade in Oxide. There we go, and then we'll smudge those. That ink pad's a little juicier, so we got a little bit more smudging going on. So I'm just going to kind of blend it in a bit more here. That center part's going to be covered, so won't matter too much. There we go. And then I do want to add just a bit of text. So I'm going to grab this text stamp from the Gothic Tapestry and my antique linen, and I'm just going to stamp it in random places. And I won't use the Misty for this. A little here. There we go. And I'll just set that aside to dry as well. And I'm just going to take my little chamois and take off some of the ink that's still a bit wet. There we go. That way it doesn't get all over my next project. For the clipboard embellishment on the card, I used this die set. This is the Vault Noteworthy. And I just cut the little clipboard out of some craft cardstock. And I'm going to stamp on the front of it using this stamp set. This is the Artist Collages, and I'm just going to use this stamp here. With the older Tim Holtz stamp sets, they don't have the image on the back. So you do want to make sure that your stamp is right side up. I've got a couple stamps that the Stampers Anonymous logo is actually upside down. So it can get a little confusing. So just make sure it's right side up. And for the ink, I'm going to use the Walnut Stain Oxide. Seven a little more. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and glue the three pieces together. And the glue I'm using is just the Barely Arts glue. When you're adhering the top layer, you want to be careful not to get any glue on this piece, because that's actually the piece that makes the clipboard actually function like a clipboard. So you'll just want to avoid that. stick that together. And then to make sure you don't get any glue or anything on it, you can stick just a bit of cardstock in there. And then that way, you know, you're not gluing your clipboard shut. Then I'm just going to ink around the edges a bit with the Walnut Stain. There we go. And then for the top of the clipboard, I did want to add a bit of texture. Yes, I know those are two different colors. I used scrap cardstock, but I'm going to paint it, so it doesn't matter anyway. And for the texture, this is where I'm going to use this little mini folder. It's, again, the mini Botanical. And then for my sandwich, when I do the thicker embossing folders, like the texture fades, I use for my Platinum 6, I use actually 3, get rid of that. I use 3 shims, the big platform base and then the little platform top. I just stick the shims in between those two, stack them together, and then I'm just going to emboss the top piece of the clipboard. And I want that flower to be kind of the main part. Just stick that in there, close it, put your embossing folder in at an angle if you can, and then run it through. I don't think that embossed enough. I'm going to do it again with one more shim. Okay, so I just added one more shim and I'm just going to run it through again. There we go, that's better. I'm going to glue these two pieces together again with the Barely Arts glue. There we go, and you can't even really tell that those are two different colors. I'm just going to grab my smushing paper towel here. I'm going to put this piece on it so I can paint it. This is just so I can set it aside to dry. And I'm going to use the Distress Paint in Salvaged Patina to paint this. So I'm just going to squeeze out a little bit on my glass mat. And then I'm going to thin it out with just a bit of water, because I want this kind of be a little bit like a wash. So I'm going to thin it out a bit more than that. And then I'm just going to dab the paint on. And just let it settle where it wants to in those cracks and crevices. And that bottom paper does not like paint. I'll have to figure out what that is. I think, I'm not even going to guess because I honestly am not really sure what that bottom paper is. There we go, that's all right. So I'm just going to set that aside to dry. And then you want to make sure and wash off your paintbrush immediately. When distress paint dries, there is no getting it out of your tools. So you just want to make sure and wash it immediately. And I forgot my little water tub, so we're using the spray bottle and the baby wipe. There we go. Wipe off this. And then this die set does come with a die to cut out the papers. And then these papers that I'm using, this is out of one of those little mini, let me see here, I have one. Oh, good grief, I'm throwing my drawers at me. One of these little mini books. I just took it apart and coffee dyed the paper, and that's what I'm using here. Since this is a relatively thin paper, I'm just going to stack them up and line them up the best I can. They won't line up perfectly because When I coffee dyed them, I kind of crinkled them up, so they're not exactly the same size anymore. And I'm just going to put the dye on there, just so the lines are straight-ish. Grab a bit of tape. Okay. I think I want it like that. We'll run that through. When you're removing the tape, you want to be kind of gentle because this is such a thin paper that's also been compromised because it's been soaked in coffee. So just want to make sure you don't rip it. There we go. Now we got 3 little mini papers to put on our clipboard. And I am going to just stress these a bit. So I'm just going to grab my Walnut Stain dauber again. And I'm just going to stack them up, and I'm just going to use whatever ink is on there and just kind of rub it around the edges a little bit. Okay. And because this is going to be like a card and I don't really want the recipient to use it as a clipboard, I'm just going to glue these together slightly. And I don't mind if they're a little wonky. And then for the photo, I did choose to use this one out of Photo Booth, so I'm just going to cut that down with my decal trimmer so it has that fun kind of torn edge on it. And then for the little sentiment piece on this card, I cut out the banner from this set. This is the Vault Boutique. And then I'm going to be using the tiny text stamp set for my stamp. And my other one said, "Hello, friend." Since this one has the couple, I think I might use the Love You. Yeah, we'll use the Love You stamp. So I'm just going to line the little die cut up on my stick and stamp mat, stick it down, and then I want this to be center-ish. Yeah, that looks good. And then for this, I'm sure y'all have guessed by now, but I'm going to use my VersaFine Clair in Fallen Leaves. And then since it's a sentiment, I'm just going to kiss the stamp to the paper, not press too hard, and I pressed a little hard. You see how it's kind of blown out looking, but that's okay. We're going to go with it for this one. This is just a piece of coffee dyed copy paper that I actually adhered to a piece of cardstock. I cut it down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and then I just die cut around the edge with this die here. This is from the Vault Edges die set from Tim Holtz and Sizzix. And then I'm just going to ink around the edges with this using my ground Espresso Distress ink. This will just kind of mimic the dark spots in the paper here and bring it around the edges. Okay, there we go. And this coffee dye paper, if you're curious, again, it's just copy paper. What I do is I just put it into like a baking dish full of coffee. I do 1 sheet at a time, put it in there, let it soak for a few seconds, take it out, kind of drain it off a little bit, and then I crumple it up, and then I just set that aside to dry. So that's how you get all these fun discolorations and everything, and the different dark marks and everything on the sheet of paper. I will say I found that regular coffee versus like instant coffee, the regular coffee works a little bit better. It could just be the type of coffee that I was using, but the instant coffee has a tendency to make things a little bit sticky almost. It's weird. So I prefer to just use the leftover brewed coffee that I have from the day. That's what I use to coffee dye my papers. So let's go ahead and start assembling the card. So I'm just going to glue my card panel onto my 5x7 card base. This is a pre-made card base. And then for this piece, I kind of want to do it a little wonky, like I did on the last one. I'm not worried about gluing the edges down there. If they come up, it'll just add to the distressed look of everything. Yeah, we'll do it about there. And on my original card, I put everything else kind of on the wonk a little bit. I don't know if I want to do that with this one. I think I kind of want to go straight-ish. Like, kind of like there. What do y'all think? Wonky or straight? I think we'll go straight, just because it's different from the first one that I did. Okay. Let's sweep that over a little bit. And straight-ish. And straight-ish, we'll go with that. And then all these little flowers I made using this die set. This is the Brushstrokes Flowers Mini from Tim Holtz, and I just colored them using my Distress Colored pencils. Go ahead and glue those on. I'm just going to put the glue in kind of the center on the back of the flowers so that I can stick the leaves in there later. And this one in the top. Oh, I really should have grabbed my squeezers. And this leaf I'm going to add here. Yeah, right there. And then this one. Down here. Oh, I really glued that flower down. That's okay. And then this one, we're going to do surgery a little bit on this one. I'm going to cut off this one leaf so that I can add it to the other side. And this is definitely where I need my squeezers. These are fiddly little bits. And this we're going to put under there. And this one. Right there. And then for the little butterfly, I'm going to color this using the Saltwater Taffy Oxide Spray. And I'm just going to use the nozzle to do that. Kind of messy-ish. You could, color this with the ink pad and a blending tool or your colored pencils. You don't have to use the spray for this. I just happened to have it handy and wanted to do it this color, so this is what I'm using. There we go. And then I'll let that dry. And then to assemble the clipboard, I'm going to use one of these little foam dots. These are the black kind of low profile ones from Simon. I'm just going to add some glue to the top and the bottom. remove the backing paper on my phone. Sorry about my head in the way. Just trying to line that up. There we go. There. We got a cute little clipboard with a decorative little clippy thingy. Y'all know me. I don't know the proper terms for much of anything, so I just make up my own words. So I'm going to glue the photo on there so then everything sticks together. And then before I move this scrap of cardstock, I'm just going to stick this under there. This again is very thin paper, so it's not very forgiving. I'm just going to stick a bit of glue on the back paper. There we go. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then this, I am going to put this on the wonk. So I think we'll put it about there. Yeah, that's cute. Cute, cute, cute. Yeah. There we go. Stick that down. I'm gonna glue my butterfly on. I do want to give it a little bit of dimension, so just stick it in my tweezers and fold the wings up, and then I'll just stick the glue on the back of the body here. And this is going to go right here. There we go. Cute. And I'm just going to distress around the edges of the sentiment piece with antique linen. I'm just going to use whatever I have left over on my dauber here. There we go. And I'm going to fold this up. About something like that. And then this side, this up. No. I don't know why, but folding these always makes me wonky. It doesn't make sense to me. I want to like fold it in half. Okay, that one's too long. So if y'all have any tips on how to fold things like this, definitely leave them in the comments. I am for sure interested. Yeah, something like that. And I don't want this to stick up, so I am going to put some glue on all the bits and bobs here. But you could absolutely have this be kind of more of a 3D element. And I'm going to attach that with some little foam squares. These are just the mini ones in the regulation thickness. And y'all know what time it is. Turn your card on the side so you can get your sentiment straight. And we'll go right there. There we go. Cute. Okay, let me close up my glue before things start drying and getting sticky. This is like, for me, this is one of those things that when I'm crafting, I have to do. I can't leave my glue open. It bugs me. I'm sure we all have those weird things that we do when we're crafting. Okay, so for the last little bit of embellishment, I'm going to add a few dots using this. This is the Contour Old Gold, and it's just kind of like a 3D paint. This is from Stamperia. This is my first one of these. I'm actually really enjoying using these, so I'll probably get some more. I'll just put one there, and there, and there, and there. And then on this side, we'll do one there, and there, and there, and there. Yeah, there we go. And there we go. There's the finished card. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do consider liking and subscribing. And as always, take some time to pamper your inner goddess, and I will see you in the next one.